FNAF Secret of the Mimic might be the most important game in FNAF history, and in today's video we're going to break down the full story from beginning to end and go over all of the secret details that you might have missed in your initial playthrough. Not to mention the dark lore that is going to change the way you look at the franchise forever. But hey, don't take my word for it. Grab some popcorn and let's go ahead and jump in. The game begins as we're introduced to our protagonist for the first time. His name is Arnold, and he just got off a 36-hour shift, barely awake, and just struggling to keep his eyes open in general.
What? I can barely keep my eyes open.
When dispatch calls him in, Arnold can't even keep his truck from drifting off the road. However, dispatch claims he's the closest technician to a job that they need done right away. And even though Arnold pleads with the man to find another technician, dispatch insists that Arnold is the technician to do the job.
You can't fool me though. You're just trying to snag one of those $25 gift certificates at the end of the year for outstanding performance.
And claims that he's just being humble and looking to get the $25 gift card at the end of the year. But that's when the truth is revealed. Arnold claims that the only reason he continues to put in these hours is because they've threatened to take his truck from him, and even worse, dock his pay along the way. And that's when dispatch begins to inform him of the job, claiming that there was a contractor by the name of Edwin Murray who's gone quiet and they don't know where he is. However, due to the contract that he had with Fazbear Entertainment, those scumbags are going to take everything that Edwin Murray has worked so hard for, whether he answers or not. The only problem is that security motion detectors keep picking up someone or something inside of the factory. So Arnold's job is to go recover all of the animatronics and then bring them back to Fazbear Entertainment. However, this problem might be a little more tough than he originally thought. Once arriving at the job's location, we get a glimpse at that very familiar Fazbear van, and dispatch explains that the only way to get inside the building is with this new diver tool. He explains that the data diver tool is used to get all around the building, serving as the master key. And so, we finally get out of the truck and head to the main entrance. Problem is, the main entrance seems to be blocked off, and an announcement claims that we need to enter in the side entrance of the building. The security obviously isn't very tight here, as you're able to just slide the lock open and walk through the gate. Once you make your way through the sketchy back entrance, you arrive at the side door, but this doesn't look like an ordinary side door. Instead, it almost looks like a main entrance. And that's when we hear Edwin Murray's voice for the first time, welcoming any potential buyers to Edwin Murray's Costume Manor, the leading powerhouse in innovation. Oddly enough though, it almost looks like the building was prepping for somebody to visit, as the door opens up and a show begins to play with all of the animatronics on display. Getting our first look at the animatronics, these things are magnificent. They look so realistic, and you can see the true craftsmanship of a master like Edwin Murray on full display. And the show itself is quite phenomenal. It almost reminds me of a Disney ride. It looks like we're off to a peaceful start until things haywire and the animatronics glitch out and eventually open the door in front of us. However, we can't quite fit through the crack that's left, and a red ominous light fills the room. Thankfully, we're able to crank a shaft and move one of the animatronics to enter into the side door of the display. Inside of this new part of the warehouse, you get to see some of the animatronics close and personal. There's all types of animal animatronics in here, some more familiar than the rest, including a couple of the ones that we've seen at the end of FNAF Ruin, as the Mimic was able to jump in and out of most of the suits. This place is immense, and it's actually quite stunning to see Edwin Murray's progression as a mechanic and a creator. The building barely seems to be holding on to power. However, thankfully, whoever was here last left generators around the building to open things like doorways. Once you make your way over to the first generator, you're able to crank it enough to open the door. The door itself leads to the office, and we get our first glimpse at the cameras as we start up the helper programming for the very first time. This thing is already loaded up with maps, exe files, and of course our objective, to recover the Fazbear property. Unbeknownst to us, however, dispatch is calling once again, And this time, they're going to be a little bit more honest with Arnold. They level with him and tell him that something is still moving within the building, and that Edwin Murray might have made some neat things over the years, and unfortunately, it seems that one of his most creative inventions may have encountered something even more dastardly. Dispatch explains that this endoskeleton that Edwin Murray was creating has homicidal tendencies and will attack anything or anyone around it. It also has the ability to adapt to any costume or character. Dispatch tries to reassure him that everything's going to be okay, and in the meantime, they're going to do their best to bring this endoskeleton down. They want Arthur to focus on the job at hand and not worry too much about this endoskeleton. But the last warning is chilling, as it claims that this entity could potentially be an inside of any costume or character that you see within the building. But we need to complete this job, so we jump back on the computer and check out some of the mail. Apparently, there was a man named Gary who said he was going to put the power back on inside of the building, and he was going to go check on it. But this man never came back. And let me tell you, something absolutely horrifying happened to Gary, but more on that in a little bit. There's also a security upgrade device inside of this room, and once you complete it, you're able to enter into doors with the diamond shape. That's exactly where we're going to be heading. Back to the entrance that we came in, there is a diamond-shaped door that leads you to a room with an animatronic costume in it. But this animatronic costume doesn't have the mimic. It has a human's body stuffed within it, rotting with flies. This is a warning that this place is a lot more horrifying than we could have ever imagined. However, against all warning signs, we crank down this shaft, which reveals a minigame. This serves as the first puzzle within the game. We need to get the overflow to reach the end. Once completed, the power will turn on and Dispatch arrives once again. But something or someone has been watching us complete this puzzle the entire time, at the window right behind us. And now Dispatch wants us to leave the room that we're in and head back to that security office. But now he's picking up readings that the motion is getting closer to us. But once we get back to the office, he then explains that we need to find the original schematic for that same animatronic trying to kill us. And once we find it, they might be able to keep us alive. Sounds like a horrible deal, but the inventory system within the building also begins to turn active and gives us a crank system to open up the gate. And making our way over to the gate is exactly what we do at this moment. That's when things take a turn for the absolute worst though. Once you open up the gate, the elephant animatronic bursts through a box and begins to chase us at full speed. If you quickly dash inside of a locker and hide long enough, you can actually make your way around him and head through the same entrance that he just burst out of. This once again leads to an ominous hallway, and at the end of this hallway is a number pad, but more on that later as we head into the elevator. This elevator brings you up to the second floor, but right before you're about to get out, it glitches, halfway opening up the door, and someone is watching. However, you begin to make your way through it and head into one of the most terrifying rooms I've seen in the game to this point. And at the end of the room is a giant Jack-in-the-Box. And if you crank it up, Jackie will pop out. Thankfully though, it looks like the mimic hasn't taken over Jackie's body just yet, and we're able to pull the crank off of this same Jack-in-the-Box and use it for another gate within the building. Once the gate is cranked open, we head down this hallway and into a new room. And inside of the room, we meet the Digityper, a Helpbot-like animatronic created by Edwin Murray. The bot continues to yap on, explaining that he can do deliveries, shred papers, and everything in between. But what we're most focused on is the generator in the room. The generator seems harmless enough, and we begin to crank it. However, once you get close to cranking it fully, Jackie pops into the room, chasing you. And at this point, we're as good as dead, backed into the corner, and Jackie is looking right at us. As a matter of fact, she's so dead set on killing us that she rips her body in half in the process. And just when we think it's all over, she turns on the Digityper and crushes him to oblivion, throwing him into the wall and allowing us to escape. I guess you can say he was more helpful than we ever would have thought, as the floor crumbles beneath us, sending us into the depths of the factory. And just when you thought we left Jackie in the dust, she begins to pop up all around us, her long extended arms almost grabbing us as we run by her, relentlessly chasing us, claiming she wants to give us a birthday hug. Nothing and no one can stop her. She continues to chase us underneath, through vents, everything in between, until we finally reach the vent ourselves, making our way into a new room. And things go quiet until Jackie drops down in front of us. Luckily for us, we close the door and it slams her in between it. She seems to be trapped at this moment, but once again, this animatronic is absolutely relentless in its pursuit to kill us. And after cranking up the generator, we're back inside of a wider vent system. And Jackie is still right on our tail, this time grabbing us. Luckily for us, she falls through the vent system and we collapse ourselves back into the office. But that's when we quickly receive a call from dispatch, who explains that they have a little bit more information up to what we're dealing with inside of the factory. Dispatch explains that Edwin Murray created this animatronic in order to watch over his son David. This thing also has the ability to mimic things around it. Unfortunately, that goes for things that are good and bad, proving just how dangerous the journey that lies ahead of Arnold is going to be. He also tells you to locate the next upgrade machine, but you need to fix the welcome show in order to get to it. Once Arnold's in the showroom, dispatch explains that the lobby entrance is blocked, and that's exactly where the next upgrade machine is. Easily enough, using the data driver, we're able to restart the show and open up the lobby doors. This is where things get interesting though, as this place is filled with animatronic suits, and the mimic could be in any one of them. Regardless, it's important that Arnold keeps moving, and he eventually stumbles across Miss Helpful. She explains that the elevator is out of service to the MCM showrooms, and if you look at it, there's a elephant's mask trapped inside of the gears. Luckily for us, we stumble across a welcome lobby tape, and it shows us exactly how to repair the elevator. And we're also introduced to a new character by the name of Fiona, but more on her later. Fiona walks us through how to repair the elevator, and that's exactly what we do. After the elevator is fixed, we head up to the second floor, stumbling across Big Top's showroom. And that's when we see Mr. Helpful. He hands us a ticket to give to a mysterious animatronic hand peeking behind the curtains, initiating the show. Now you'll notice this animatronic is enormous, and it looks very similar to one we've seen in the past. Big Top Showroom seems fun enough, and you even can play mini games. There's a nice target practice one that we give a try, but once completed, things take a dark turn. Something happens to Mr. Helpful, and when you turn around, the whole building is shadowed by these new, horrifying animatronic mannequins. The only way out of this nightmare is to spin the prize wheel and hope it lands on the grand prize. Luckily for Arnold, it does, opening up a new entrance. This entrance leads to the second floor of the Big Top Circus, but Mr. Big Top is missing. The good news is we get the new security access, which leads us to the rooftop of the building. The bad news is that Mr. Big Top is also on the roof of the building, and now he's hunting Arnold. This horrifying, ginormous animatronic continues to beat the building to smithereens, hunting Arnold at all costs. No matter where you go, he continues to smash his way through to you, eventually collapsing the entire building, and Arnold goes falling to the depths. The weird thing is, once Arnold opens his eyes, Mr. Big Top is deceased. And somehow Arnold survived the exact same fall. But there's no rest for the wicked, as dispatch is back, and he's asking Arnold to come back to the security office to find the location of a new upgrade station. Once Arnold's back in the office though, he begins to lose his mind with dispatch. You can hear it here yourself.
Almost died again. You need to send help. Get me out of here now.
Dispatch completely brushes him off though and tells him to head to the demonstration theater. Once there, Arnold turns on the power once again, but a Massilian man seems to be hunting him. However, once Arnold avoids him, he heads into this horrifying workshop. And if this game couldn't get even more twisted, the only way for Arnold to enter the theater is to put on a spring-locked suit. The craziest part is, Arnold has to assemble the suit himself. And once it's assembled, Arthur legitimately spring locks himself inside of it. Somehow, this was Edwin Murray's only way of accessing the theater, and you can actually get on an animatronic elevator to make your way to the show. The show itself actually features Foxy, and somehow that's not even the biggest surprise. As you watch the show, for some reason it turns into a target range, and your new animatronic suit allows you to shoot at all of the different targets. But as you continue to shoot them, the building is breaking until eventually the floor beneath you crumbles. At this point, it's just becoming a theme of the game. But this time, Arnold wakes up to the nurse, or as she's properly named, Dolly. Unfortunately for Arnold, Dolly thinks that he's a foreign object inside of the spring-lock suit, and she's going to drill and scoop him out of it. Luckily though, she has some other tasks to attend to first and leaves the room, giving Arnold a chance to escape from the suit. But just when he thinks he's escaped, Nurse Dolly pops up once again. Turns out she's the recycling center's spokesperson as well. But that's not all. She's now mistaking Arnold as trash and put on an electric loop, chasing him every time he makes a move. And this goes on until the door finally opens, and then Dolly goes missing. She's no longer on the track. She's free roaming through the building, hunting for Arnold. Arnold seems to make his way through a grate and ends up at a computer, which allows him to open up access to the doll hospital, as well as randomly opens up a pit filled with lava in front of him. And that will come in handy later, as Dolly's still hunting Arnold. But he might have a trick up his sleeve. He needs to activate a power reactor core, and in order to do that, he has to fill up all the recycling chutes with the recycling across the map. Once he does so, the maintenance room is now open, but Dolly is right on his tail, looking at him from the end of the conveyor belt. Thankfully, all those recyclables he put down the chutes are coming in handy, as he's sending them towards her, allowing him to create distance between him and Dolly along the way. These obstacles hinge Dolly's movement, and eventually she falls to her demise inside of the lava pit. Or so we thought. Once Arthur makes his way down the elevator, somehow, some way, Dolly comes through the wall, filled with lava, burning alive. And she can't be stopped, as she's hunting Arnold through the incinerator room. The only way he's lucky enough to escape is by reaching the elevator, and even then, Dolly just barely misses him. Stuck between him and the bars, Dolly is left on the floor below. And that's when you hear Fiona's voice once again, piecing together that this is Ed's wife, and she's here to tell you how to fix the elevator that you're trapped within. And of course, easily enough, Arnold's able to figure it out, heading back up to his safety, until Dolly's molten form jumps on the top of the elevator shaft. And to make things worse, she's weighing down the elevator, and you need to fix it while also being attacked by her. And as the elevator races up towards the ceiling, crushing Dolly, the mimic pops out from her body and escapes, proving just how relentless this animatronic is in his hunt for Arnold. Somehow, some way, Arnold makes his way back into the office, and Dispatch begins to tell him that he needs to go into Murray's office, and the way in is through the warehouse. Now this is familiar to Arnold. It's pretty much been in front of him the entire night, and as he begins to walk through it, things take a strange turn for even me, as Chica comes popping out of one of the boxes. The funny thing is, she's on roller skates, and for some reason she reminds me of the bad guy from Toy Story 2 in this outfit. She's easy enough to avoid though, and the warehouse is actually really cool. There's plenty of props in here and Arnold takes full advantage. But what's important about this is that these different tapes that he finds along the way explains the journey of how Edwin was forced to take over the company. And Fiona seemed to be a great support system as well. She even helped him focus on one project at a time and always told him that she loved him. But Arnold has to press on, and into the admin entrance he goes. This place is oddly filled with Mr. Cupcakes on roller skates as well. And guess what? Chica's back, roaming the offices, looking for Arnold. Just barely avoiding her, Arnold's able to find the last access upgrade. And this upgrade gets him into Edwin Murray's office. And that's when he finds another tape by Edwin himself, claiming that they were looking for M2, but they can't have it because it's not ready. Which makes me wonder, is there another mimic out there that we don't know about? M1 is the first mimic that he referenced, and now there's an M2? Either way, Arnold's here to get the blueprints off this computer. That's exactly what he attempts to do. But as he goes for them, the mimic is in hot pursuit. Getting away from him, Arnold stumbles across another audio tape, and this one shows the frustration that Edwin had with the mimic. As the mimic's whole goal was to copy things that it saw or heard, it began to play the same audio, sounding like David, his late son. This upset Edwin, and you can hear him taking out his frustrations physically on the robot. But there's literally no time to rest, as Arnold pulls the lever on a new room. And when he walks in, Tiger Rock is waiting for him in the shadows. And it almost seems like he's being toyed with. The lights keep going in and out, and he keeps envisioning close-ups of the animatronic. This almost doesn't even seem real. It seems like a figment of Arnold's imagination. And that's when he stumbles across what looks to be a star nightlight. This game doesn't end here. He puts it down just for Tiger Rock to come back once again, popping up in between the light and the shadows. And the process continues. He once again stumbles across another nightlight. This one has a different facial expression, as it seems to be more saddened. Over and over, this process continues until he finally escapes its grasp, taking the elevator back upstairs. That's when dispatch kicks back in, and he tells you to come back into the office, which is exactly what Arnold does. And guess what? Dispatch didn't believe you to make it this far, and congratulates you not only on completing your data diver, but also finding the mimic's blueprints. He then tells you to put that same data diver into the inventory system, but the way he says it seems off. If you choose to try and leave the office, Dispatch begins to get upset. He threatens to keep you locked within the office unless you give him the data diver. Thinking quickly, Arnold opens up the computer and starts parachute.exe, which reveals a hidden vent right next to the computer. And escaping through that vent is exactly what he does. But Dispatch isn't done with him. He begins insulting Arnold and telling him that the mimic is going to choose a suit for him, that he's no better than any of the other previous workers who made it this far. And along the way, closes Arnold in. That's when Arnold arrives back at the main stage and starts the goodbye show. But this isn't any ordinary goodbye. A button shows up in the center of the stage, and then once he presses it, Mr. Big Top is back once again, trying to close in on Arnold. The only way he can escape is pressing the levers in sequence, and doing so fast enough to where Mr. Big Top can't catch him. And once he gets to the bottom, he heads into the research and development area, where he sees a giant Freddy animatronic head. This area is super interesting because not only do you see Freddy's head, but you get a glimpse of the main stage, a prototype form of Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria. This includes Chica, Foxy, and once you turn on the stage lights, a Bonnie animatronic prototype that the mimic is possessing. The only way for Arnold to escape is to spring lock himself in different suits and overload the power to the building. And once he does so, Fiona reveals herself as the Dispatch this entire time. And a robot version similar to the MXES lets Arnold meet her face to face, meaning that she is potentially the M1. She says that Edwin abandoned them and he shut himself away in their home. And now she needs you to activate the subcommunication system so she can convince him to repair M2, aka the mimic that we see. And then she reveals a secret entrance to Edwin Murray's home. But you're not alone inside the house, as the mimic is still in hot pursuit. As you explore the home, you come across different tapes, each tape more sad than the last. They explain the story of how they lost Fiona, the mother of David, and of course Edwin Murray's wife. Birthdays and special events went on without her, until Edwin decided to come across making the M1, aka Fiona, a replacement for his lovely wife. However, this mimic had shortcomings and was only able to mimic that of a mother, and it served a great purpose in allowing David to get a piece of his mother along the way, and a babysitter for David. It was the successful version that the M2 just never could be. And then Arnold finds another audio tape, this one revealing Edwin Murray's demise, as the M2 burned him alive inside of their house and didn't help him, mimicking rage and payback for what Edwin had done. And that's when the mimic becomes aware of Arnold's location, begins walking towards him. Arnold quickly tries to pull the lever to the office, closing the door, but the mimic stops it from closing and bursts his way inside. Thankfully, the door behind him opens and he's able to make a quick escape, running into an elevator shaft and just closing it in enough time to keep the mimic outside. But the building is coming apart and slowly crumbling, and Arnold needs to get out in a hurry. Luckily, he's able to escape through a railroad track. With the mimic in hot pursuit as well as other creations, Arnold needs to get out of here before the building collapses. He dashes towards the exit, but the mimic shows up once again, blocking his path, until a steel beam falls on top of it, crushing him and sending him into the lava and allowing Arnold to escape. Mr. Helpful escorts him through an abandoned burning building, and now Arnold is finally outside, heading towards his van. But the animatronics inside of the building don't stop pursuing. They jump all over his van as he swerves them off of it. Arms and limbs cover his windshield, but that's not even the worst part. The mimic jumps on the roof, smashing the windshield. The mimic grabs Arnold's steering wheel and crashes the van. Arnold, barely conscious in a burning vehicle, watches as the mimic sticks his hand in and grabs the data driver with the blueprints. And that's the last image that Arnold gets, burning alive inside of his van as the mimic slowly walks away in the open. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end and full story explained of Secret of the Mimic. If you want to see more videos just like this, including the secret endings, do me a big favor. Make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button for all things FNAF related. And I'll see you in the next one. Till then, peace out!